I'm gonna try to be fast because you're hungry and we're kind of late, so that's okay. I'm gonna be the guy that's gonna talk a little bit about governance. This is something that you all know about and you already feel and live through because you're humans, okay? I'm just gonna make a really quick recap and maybe remind you of some stuff. So, governance is a messy business, kind of like this messy sometimes. This is a true representation of a DAO forum, usually. That's what happens. And, you know, because politics is a messy business, because coordination is a messy business, collaboration is a messy business, cooperation as well. Sometimes, you know, you have to figure out how to cooperate with each other. So yeah, it's not easy to do governance or to operate in the governance context, and it almost feels like it's too theoretical at times, and we need to, you know, study military strategy to do something. So governance is a messy, chaotic, sloppy, turbulent business, and whether we like it or not, we're all in it. Especially if we talk about DAO governance and we participate in crypto circles and we join DAOs and we try to do something in a DAO, right? So we might as well think a little bit about how to operate in those contexts and what we could do to help with that. So, a show of hands, just to see who we have here. Who has joined the DAO before from this group? All right. Who has voted on an on-chain DAO proposal? Okay. Off-chain?
Off-chain, yes.
Snapshot, okay. Who has created, published, or passed a DAO proposal? All right. Who has created a governance framework for a DAO? The stupid one. What is this governance thing really, right? The definition is the structures, processes, and traditions that determine how power is exercised, stakeholders have their say, decisions are made, and decision makers are held accountable. All these terms here are pretty big, right? What is power? There's a bunch of ways to define power. What stakeholders are we talking about? Are we talking about the owners, the customers, the suppliers, partners, whatever, right? They're all stakeholders, really. How decisions are made, they can be made by different million ways, right? The CEO decides everything in some contexts, or the community decides everything in some other extreme contexts, and how decision makers are accountable or not sometimes, right? But if we look at this, and if we're trying to operate in a context where there's governance, we have to think about, okay, we need to design some kind of governance for this thing, this DAO, this system, this community, whatever it is. And we might as well start from one of these. And if you think about this, to determine how power is exercised, how stakeholders have their say, and how decision makers are held accountable, this is all decisions that someone has to make at some point. So I think that the root thing of governance is how decisions are made, and to define how decisions are made. Usually by a group of people. Because if I have to make a decision for myself, usually I can think for myself, I make a decision for myself, maybe I can advise, ask for advice from some other people, but if it is a decision for myself that impacts only myself, usually I can do it myself. But if it is a decision in a group, where the decision is going to impact other people, then I really do need governance in the process to define how to make that decision, right? If I'm not a tyrannical dictator. Because if I am, it's easy to do it, and I just said it myself, right? So, if we want to be better than that, we should have a process to make decisions in the group. So, enter the human, right? So, if we are in a group, and everybody knows that in every context, either it's like in your intimate relationship with your partner, or in your family with like 4 or 5 people, or larger family with 10, 20 people, whatever. or in your neighborhood with 100 people, or in your city with thousands of people, right? The size of the group matters for the way you make decisions, and the larger the group, the more chaotic it is, especially when we go up to levels of the country level, right, where millions of people are trying to decide who's going to be the next leader, right? And they go in elections and vote and so on. And so the thing is that usually the larger the group, the more messy and more complicated the decisions and the governance process is, because people have to deal with more communication, more information between them, and it's a mess. So it's not a surprise to say that governance is a mess, because it really, the larger the group, the more messy it is, right? And the other, even more complicated thing is that sometimes, actually maybe most of the times, even within ourselves, decision making can be messy, because sometimes we can decide with this, and sometimes we can decide with this. Guys have another ways with some. And the syncing between these two is problematic, right? So even governing ourselves and deciding for ourselves is tricky. So even more in a group of thousands of people, right? So we have to be at least aware that when we say, oh, governance is fucked up and it's hard to do and it's difficult, of course, because within ourselves it is difficult, might as well in a group of people, right? So yeah, when you join this together, it's a fucking mess, right? Okay, so what should we do about it? I think that we've already witnessed a bunch of drama and scandals and shit shows in the DAO space regarding governance, right? And I think that as a society, we kind of have a way, like a very ancient, very rooted within ourselves way to deal with that kind of thing, which is, I think, also the crypto way to deal with it, which is just profit out of the mess that governance is. And the way we've been doing it is entertainment. Like, we like seeing drama on TV, right? 90 Days to Wed and No Neck Ad or whatever it's called. And, right? Everybody recognizes those things because it's funny and it's entertaining to see drama in other contexts, right? So if the governance doesn't impact ourselves, and if we're watching the governance of other contexts, it can be entertaining and it can be funny, and it can be, even though people are suffering there, but you know, we humans don't give a shit many times if it doesn't involve us. So it can be entertaining, right? And so I think there's a way to make governance more, at least more present in the minds of most people that are in this space, if we at least don't make a taboo out of it, because that's what we're doing right now. Right now we're like, oh, DAO governance is a mess, so let's not do governance, let's do governance minimize things, and people have to fend for themselves and decide, like, that's an approach, but it's not really the human approach, I think. The human approach is more like, let's get into it and let's actually discuss it and discuss it in the open and at least be honest that the drama and the shitty things exist, right? And comment on it and do entertainment on top of it and blah, 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 right? So that's at least my take. And I think it's also a take that can lead to maybe some business models on top of it. In the same way that, you know, reality shows have a business model and stuff like that, right? So, that's my take, that's what I wanted to bring today. Governance can be entertaining if it doesn't hurt us. And so me and a friend of mine, we're doing a thing called Proposals.app, where you're going to be able to see all the hot and juicy proposals from all DAOs, and comment on them, and share them, and participate on them, and then maybe make your decisions and vote on them in a maybe funny, maybe interesting way. And that's it. If you want to go to the Proposal tab and put your email to get on the waiting list when we launch in a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe more, I don't know. That would be cool. And I think governance can be entertaining at least, and not a taboo, since that's what we're doing now, mostly in the DAO space. Paul Fonseca, I design tools for DAO people. You can find more about me at paulfonseca.com. And you can use this presentation for whatever you want in that thing.
Thank you.
Question? Is anybody shocked with this take of like governance can be entertaining and you can profit out of it, basically? That's what I'm trying to check.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Now eager to see how you're going to incentivize and make it interesting. So definitely. My question is more. Yeah, in the crypto world, we saw all this drama and governance, and we saw it can be sometimes also difficult to implement governance. We are also seeing in DeFi more and more protocols that are saying, okay, we want to be fully immutable, so we are not going to have any governance. So I'm thinking about Liquidity, for instance, that is doing the stablecoin. More recently, like Morpho is going to do something like with a primitive that is fully decentralized. So at the end, there will be no governance token. Do you think governance will stay basically, or do you think at some point everything will be automated and we are going to be like fully decentralized?
Yeah, I have a very specific opinion on that, right? Because I'm invested on governance staying and being part of the thing, right? I think that this movement of zero governance protocols is an overreaction to the drama that we've had, mostly. What's it mean?
Please continue.
So I think it's an overreaction to the drama that has been in governance. I think we already had some examples, for example, Arjuna Finance, that they were very cocky about, no, we have an immutable one. It was hacked immediately. And now, oh fuck, we have to launch V2, because now it's immutable, so we can change it. So there's also risks associated with that. I think that the worst part about that is that it implies that the end user would have to have the discernment and the sensibility to decide what kind of risk they want, for example, in specifically DeFi protocols, right? And define those parameters and so on, which I think it will just lead to more friction for the end user, which I think will just lead to, they will prefer some other platforms, right? I think it is a human need to trust the institution of the platform that I'm using, and I'm going to illustrate the extremes, right? If I go to uniswap.com, I see an ICY, I can easily swap whatever tokens. If I go to the Etherscan contract page of governance minimized, and I go to right, it's like 0.1% of people are going to do that, right? Of the 0.1 that do swaps, right? So I think it's very aggressive from the user experience point of view, and it will lose out in the end. And also on top of that, I think it's an overreaction to the drama that we've had about governance. And I think we had the drama that we had about governance up until now because we were not able to do governance properly. And we were also to the extreme of like, let's make the DAO decide on everything, about everything, and everybody votes, and it's token weighted, and all, right? So that's also a very naive approach to governance. So it's not a surprise that people got disappointed with that, and now are doing the other extreme approach, which is no governance at all, and so on. So yeah, I think governance is going to stay because I think from a human point of view, you know, ever since we were in caves, we were doing governance as a family, and we were deciding stuff, and we were debating, and we were putting arguments and counter arguments and so on. So yeah, it's a human thing to do.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think both can definitely be complementary. So you can have some like fully decentralized primitives, and on top of that, you can have some other DAOs that are going to be plugged on it with some governance.
Yeah.
Another question I have is, I think in the crypto space with this DAO, we have this ideal of like, let's not have any power structure, like no hierarchy, but in a lot of DAOs, you realize that you ask your token holder to vote on some like really specific technical details. I'm thinking in Aave, for instance, they are asking
onboard this collateral by
about
this
like-
parameter, blah blah. Nobody,
yeah,
nobody,
risk
nobody
parameter.
yeah.
That you need to have like a PhD in math to understand like all the risk parameters. So maybe there is no point. So what do you see basically as the future of governance? Maybe of thinking of some committee of we have all these delegates basically this kind of liquid democracy
Yeah.
where you can delegate your token. Do you have any ideas or what is your view on that?
Yeah, so Aave is a good example in all the, like, I don't know, maybe like 30% of the proposals on Aave. First of all, they come at random times, and then they are all like, on board this collateral with this percent, with this parameter. Nobody understands what it means. That's why Gauntlet and Chaos Lab are getting paid millions of dollars to make those proposals, because they understand it. And although they make the proposals and if they fuck up, they don't really are liable about it, but whatever. So I think that's a governance process that could be better, right? And usually people are now doing councils to take care of those more specific things. Councils of people composed by experts that are experts on those things, and the Aave could decide right now to say, okay, for the next 6 months, Gauntlet and Chaos Labs in partnership, they decide all these things, and they don't need to put a proposal to make those pass, and they just do the thing, and we have KPIs to say, after 6 months, we expect this to go up, if you don't, you get fired, blah, blah, blah. And the DAO decides on that thing, on that meta proposal, let's say, and then all the others are, a consequence of that. I think expertise-based kind of things are the ones that are more susceptible to become councils. And we're having that with audits and security and so on first, because it's like the thing that nobody will actually know about. And it's actually dangerous to have it fully public as well. And so I think that's a model that will solve for that most of the times. Because the danger of having that as the main governance process in DAOs is that then the normal voter starts to disengage, and then the voter apathy is 95%, and then nobody votes, and then do you really have legitimacy to change those things with only 4% of people voting and so on? So it raises all those questions. So I think that we started in the DAO space, especially in the DeFi space, with a brute force approach of like, everything goes up to proposal, and then everybody has to vote on everything, and then only 4% of people vote, right? And they're always the same. And they amass power, and then they have too much control, and blah, blah, blah. So we should have been more careful about what things go up to vote, because voting is just one governance tool, and it's not the best. It's the one that we, as humanity, we decided to use at the million people group level, right? In a group of millions of people, we decided to put votes every blah, blah years to elect the leaders, to represent us, blah, 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 right? So it's the kind of tool that's very rough and very coarse to make decisions. We can have other tools to make decisions that are not just voting for the other things that we could have. So, we overreacted on one side because it was like the pure, most token-based thing, and now we have to adjust it.
Thank you.
That's it. All right, thank you.
I guess that's it. Thank you, Paulo.